Bad news for Trump advisor Roger Stone. Today, a federal judge issued a new order hauling Stone back to court for possibly violating his gag order. This is based on Stone's statements in a book and Instagram post that attacked the prosecution. The judge stressing today Stone was only gagged after he abused the latitude the court provided, posting incendiary and threatening messages on Instagram, an echo of the witness threats he was originally indicted for. So now Stone must defend his statements in this new hearing next week, while Mueller's prosecutors suggest this violation was a problem for the gag order. They have this standard filing. Then in a footnote, Mueller chose to cite a headline that says Stone's post could violate his gag order. So tonight's news on this part of the Mueller probe is simple. It's now more likely Roger Stone will go to jail, and that's because of Roger Stone. We know jail is more likely because the judge who decides this just gave Stone his last warning recently, noting from the bench he violated the gag order already, and unlike baseball, you don't get a third chance. No more chances means jail. And this same judge is the one you may remember who gagged Paul Manafort and told his team to knock it off with their press conferences outside the courthouse, saying the trial was not a public relations campaign. And then when Manafort was busted for something worse than talking about the case, the guy was busted for talking about the case to witnesses. This same judge cracked down.
Paul Manafort's arrival at federal court in Washington was one of his last moments as a free man after Mueller's prosecutors charged him with trying to influence witnesses who might be called to testify.
She explains why she's going to put the president's campaign chairman in jail. And the judge says, I've wrestled with this. What conditions could there be? This is not middle school. I can't take his cell phone.
The judge couldn't take his cell phone, so she took his freedom. You may recall Paul Manafort's been incarcerated ever since. So that's how we know Stone is more likely to be jailed. Now, how do we know tonight this is his fault? Because Roger Stone played himself. More specifically, he played himself on social media, on the gram. And the context here matters. Not everything a defendant says before trial risks jail. Stone had argued a gag order was actually unfair to someone who made his money communicating.
I make a living writing and speaking about politics. I would hope that the court would take that into consideration.
They would be depriving me of making a living if I am entirely gagged.
I need to be able to raise the money to mount a defense.
That sounds reasonable. And during that time on this very show, we reported on how that could be a decent argument. I showed cases Stone could cite for defending his free speech. But Stone's conduct now has made it harder to invoke those cases or defend him. Even Roger Stone, in fact, didn't defend Roger Stone at that last hearing, the final warning hearing. He said to the court his Instagram post attacking the judge was indefensible and he was responsible. And though he also deflected onto a group of unnamed volunteers who help him, I guess, with his Instagram, he claimed he couldn't remember who was involved in that just days earlier. We also know this is Stone's fault because he's been attacking Mueller in the case in media appearances across television, using his very own indictment for a huge media blitz and leaking his own security footage, which showed the Mueller arrest, in order to then go back on TV to attack it all again.
To storm my house with a greater force than was used to take down bin Laden, it's unconscionable. This was an egregious overreach by Mr. Mueller. These are Gestapo tactics. They treated me like El Chapo.
Now, you may know already those claims are false. But legally, Stone's problem isn't even lying about the case. It's talking about the case at all. Even true statements can violate the current gag order. And while Stone may not be able to control himself, to help himself, to stop, this judge can jail him next week, all because he keeps posting these attacks on Instagram, a sort of clumsy, criminal, wannabe gangster version of what the kids these days call doing it for the gram. This may be a fitting crime for our reality show era because it risks everything for showmanship. Stone attacks the judge who controls his fate with this crosshairs picture on Instagram, just like he posted this propaganda image likening Mueller to Stalin, also on the gram. And this one imagining himself as some kind of David fighting a mighty Mueller Goliath. Or the latest image, which can land him in jail, which implies that Mueller has illegally framed him. Roger Stone could be the first defendant in this whole Mueller probe to literally go to jail for the gram before he even stands trial. Now, if that means Stone fits our current media moment, let me observe tonight this is a sad kind of synergy that fits a wider decline of what it even means to try to be a hustler. You know, there's another person who makes his living off words, Sean Carter, who recently noted that while the older generation of hustlers were discreet, nowadays the wannabes are bragging about crime on Instagram. Carter explains why this is dumb, saying, "I don't be on the gram going ham, giving leads to cops, that's all spam." And in lecturing these online phonies, he says a little bit of advice. Please don't talk about guns that you aren't ever going to use. You always tell on yourself. That has me so confused. Sean Carter was addressing studio gangsters, but he could have been addressing Roger Stone. And if Stone had only listened to the judge in this case, to his own lawyers, or yes, to Sean Carter, well, maybe Roger Stone could have avoided today's rebuke from the judge and avoid whatever she decides next week. But instead, on the gram, Roger Stone keeps telling on himself. Hey, I'm Ari Melber from MSNBC. You can see more of our videos right here, or better yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel below. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and we appreciate that.